We just opened at noon today, and already in that first hour, we saw double the number of people than we normally see.
That surge comes as thousands of Iowans who rely on SNAP benefits wait for federal help to arrive. Pantry volunteers say some Iowans are forced to choose between food and basic needs.
Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the name of this channel is Alaska Prepper. So you would think that I'm always going to be talking about preparedness. But in a way, I am when I cover these news stories that I share with you. I like to exemplify the reasons why it is that we need to be prepared. You don't need to be prepared for the end of the world. If I knew that the end of the world was going to be next week, I'd be partying it up. But it's not. We need to prepare for crises, whether small or large. And this is developing into a very serious crisis. Food banks all over the U.S. are being overwhelmed by a tsunami of hungry people.
Do I feed my family, as I was doing before using SNAP benefits, or I have to take that money and use it towards food? I'm going to get behind on my electric bill. I might lose my housing because I don't have enough for rent.
And it's not only the food banks, but the people themselves have been overwhelmed with heightened prices over the last several years. As grocery prices have risen, demand at food banks throughout the country has surged to very alarming levels. Now, this is before anyone even losing their jobs. Everyone out there knows that people are just barely staying above water as far as paying their bills, being able to live, and affording the prices of food that have risen, I would say, by at least 100% over the last 2, 3, 4 years. Millions of very hungry people are showing up at food banks looking for something to eat, and resources are being stretched to the limit. Imagine if all of these millions of people would have had a month's worth of food put away. Just 1 month of basic staples, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about pasta, rice, beans, canned meats, canned vegetables, things that last a very long time that you can put it away and forget about it until you have to break that glass in case of emergency. Take a look at this video up here that I did a few days ago, probably almost a week ago now, that showcase how you can just go and buy some food that's going to last you for years, in some cases more than a decade. Put it under your bed and just leave it there. You don't even have to think about it until you need it, because it's foods that are going to last a very long time. Sure, they may not be as healthy as fresh fruits, vegetables, or meats, but it will keep the bellies of your children full. Food pantries across Iowa are seeing record demand as families wait for the federal government to restore their food assistance entitlements. At one food bank in Iowa, they are servicing about twice as many people as usual.
At Catholic Charities of Iowa, they're preparing for the same spike. And for families unsure where to turn, volunteers say food pantries are open to everyone.
Anyone can come at any time with a photo ID. That's all we need.
And they say we just opened the door at noon today, and already in the first hour, we saw double the number of people that we normally see. And it's only going to get worse, ladies and gentlemen. Take my word on that. The longer that this shutdown goes, and the longer that people are furloughed from work and not receiving a paycheck, the worse that it's going to get. So if you can, and you're willing to do so, help wherever it is that you can help. When you suddenly go from serving 120,000 people per week, that is a lot of people, 120,000. Goodness gracious, that's what, 3 times, almost 4 times bigger than the people here in Fairbanks, Alaska. Going to 170,000 people per week, it's going to be very difficult to have enough food for everyone. Food banks will run out of food eventually.
The need is stretching pantries thin, and leaders say the federal government's partial funding likely won't be enough to slow the demand.
Often, those at the end of the food bank lines end up with nothing, and that is why so many people are lining up early. On Monday, in a parking lot of Contra Costa College in San Pablo, the line for food stretched all the way down the sidewalk. And they said, we're expecting at least 500 families to come out to our distribution. When he opened the food line, the crowd was a little hard to believe. And it's everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just local to a couple of states or a couple of counties or cities. In Colorado, approximately 100 vehicles were lined up at a food bank in Greeley before the doors were even open. One food bank in Dayton, Ohio was experiencing a dramatic spike in demand long before the shutdown even happened, and now it's gotten even worse. They say that year to date, we are about 30% higher than last year. This week alone, we signed up 23 new families. And 23 new families may not seem like a lot, but when you're only used to servicing about 100 families, that's a 23% increase in the amount of food that you're handing out now that you weren't handing out a week ago. Now listen to this. And now we are rapidly getting to the point where there simply will not be enough food for everyone. What happens then?
The food bank closest to me tells me they've never been busier, serving 1,000 families last week. Across the country, nearly a dozen states have declared an emergency because of the ending of these benefits, and it's affecting 1.4 million Americans here in Georgia alone.
Food stamp delays hit Michigan, and residents say that they are now having to ration food as food banks scramble to figure out how they're going to be able to continue to provide support to those in need. And out of Colorado, it's the same story. Hundreds of cars lined up in order to get food before the doors even open. Staff and volunteers worked through a typical lunch break to meet the demand, maneuvering shopping carts full of food to their awaiting recipients. They should have put awaiting lucky recipients, because those are the ones that are going to get food. A lot of them will be left without. And as the government shutdown drags on, it looks like they may have plans to try to get this bill passed today on Friday. And hopefully they do. Hopefully we've learned from this experience and we'll learn to be better prepared. But ladies and gentlemen, one thing that you have to remember is this: that which the government giveth, it can taketh away.
If the government feeds you, it can starve you. If the government houses you, it can evict you. If the government pays your utilities, it can turn them off. If the government pays your cell phone, it can disconnect it. If the government provides your transportation, it can decide where you go and when you can travel. If the government takes care of your health, it can decide when it's spent enough money on you. If the government educates your children, it can choose what they learn. If the government raises your children, it can shape what they believe. If the government controls your information, it can control your truth. And when a government controls all of those things, it doesn't have to take your freedom. You'll hand it over piece by piece in exchange for comfort. You'll think you're being cared for when reality is you're being kept, okay? Every single thing comes at a price, because the moment you depend on them for everything, you depend on them for permission to live.
Who cannot agree with what this lady just said? However, I do have to say that during this time, we have to have compassion. Now, if you can and are willing to help out a local food pantry or a family member or a friend or neighbor that needs help during these times, you know what to do. It's got to be in your heart to do it, though. It cannot be forced upon you. I do want these entitlements to get turned back on, but only to those people that really need it. Only to those people that cannot provide these things for themselves because they're not capable of going out there to do the same thing that millions of Americans do every single day. And it's to go out there and provide value to society so that they can earn a living. And if you're out there and you need help, don't be afraid to ask. God bless every one of you. I love you all. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.